Hello everyone. Welcome back to the newspaper discussion of 10th March. So, today also we shall be discussing three very important topics from various sources. So, let's start our discussion with the first topic. Okay, here our first important topic is related to bitter milk. So the context is the Raja Mahendravaram milk adulteration case. So recently there was milk adulteration case. Because of that there were multiple deaths also and serious health issues in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So first of all, let's discuss the news briefly. Then we shall be extracting the prelims related important points. So see what happened recently. Recently a very tragic incident occurred in Andhra Pradesh where the milk was contaminated by ethylene glycol. So this was the chemical by which the milk was contaminated, and this happened. As per the people there, this happened because the vendor continued selling milk even after various complaints of the bitter taste and possible contamination. So what was the main chemical in the contamination? That was the ethylene glycol. Now after that, what happened? As a result, the government treated it as a severe as a serious criminal offense because since various deaths were also reported because of this contamination, so government reported it as a serial criminal offense and it was reported under Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. Okay, here the charges were related to murder and culpable homicide. However, the article also says that incident also exposes deeper issues in India's food safety regulation system. Means it's not like you just impose penalties and that's it. Here the deeper issue is that the larger portion of milk in India is supplied by the informal suppliers, and this is a fact. So, here the proper hygiene, proper inspection, or cold chain monitoring cannot be done or is absent at present. So, this is the deeper issue here. So, the article argues that while the strict punishment is necessary, obviously the punishment is necessary, but preventing such tragedies requires stronger regulation, regular inspections, affordable testing kits, etc. etc. Also, the bodies like FFSAI have to take strong preventive measures, preventive measures as well as curative measures. So the end or the no ultimate message of the article is food safety is not just about punishing the offenders but also about building systems that detect the early violations and prevent the contamination that harm the people. So in this way, we discussed the article briefly. Now let's discuss the prelims related important points because these type of questions have already been asked by UPSC from science and tech portion. For example, UPSC will provide you name of any chemical and it will provide you the applications that this particular type of chemical is used no has what kind of applications or used in which type of industry. So here we will be discussing about ethylene glycol. So first of all, important thing about ethylene glycol is that it is a colorless, odorless, and sweet tasting industrial chemical. So these properties you can remember. And what are the very common uses of ethylene glycol? So very common use. It is used as anti-freezing agent. So no, in motorbikes or in cars, also it is used as anti-freezing agents during the cold conditions. Also, a very good example is you have seen the runway in the airports, right? So to anti-freeze or to defreeze the runways in the airports also, ethylene glycol is used. So you can remember this that it is used as an anti-freezing agent. Also, sometimes it is also used as a cooling agent. Now, a very important application is about the polyester production. So, in the PET bottles, in the polythene production, also ethylene glycol is used. So, these are some of the important applications. Now, why it is considered dangerous? Because No, it can cause harm to the kidney or the nervous system. So it says when ingested, it is metabolized in toxic compounds and it can damage kidney, nervous system, or heart. So that's why, because of this milk contamination, various deaths were reported in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So these were some of the important points related to ethylene glycol. Now, let's discuss briefly about this important body, that is Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. So, UPSC has already asked a question in the previous years related to FSSAI, but let's discuss some points briefly. So, first of all, you must know that this body was established under Food Safety and Standards Act 2006. So, obviously, what will be nature? It is a statutory body because it was created under a statute. Under which ministry this body is? So it is under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And the functions are very obvious. You can know easily eliminate the options. So functions like regulates food safety standards, issue licenses to food businesses. So see, when we are discussing this article, so we have discussed that no, the milk supply chain is mainly informal in India. So it is the important duty of FSSAI to see all these things, because one of the important function is issuing licenses to the food businesses in India. So, if FSSAI take the strict actions, these type of incidents can be easily avoided. Okay, and headquarters are in New Delhi. Okay, so this was it for this article. We discussed the news, we discussed about ethylene glycol, and then we discussed about the body. Yes, one more important thing, at least you must have an idea. Maybe it's not asked in UPSC prelims, but it can help you in any other exam. Since in article Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita was also mentioned. So let's discuss briefly. So BNS was replaced by IPC, Indian Penal Code, and finally it came into force in 2024. And as we discussed in the article, that government has imposed severe penalties under Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So what all sections were revoked? What all sections were used? So first was section 103 of BNS. It is related to punishment for murder. And second section is section 105 of BNS. It is related to culpable homicide not amounting to murder. So at least you can remember at least these two sections because they were mentioned in the news. Now, next important article is about the open market operations. So related to Indian economy, open market operations. So see, under this topic, we shall be discussing no three or four very small, no very important concepts also. So first we will be discussing the entire news, then we shall be discussing prelims related concepts. So what is the context? Context is recently Reserve Bank of India have conducted open market operations. So this is the first thing, open market operations are conducted. Second thing is the government also conducted a switch auction, buying back certain bonds that were scheduled to mature in the next financial year. So, before discussing that why RBI did that and why government has conducted switch auction, first of all, let's discuss briefly the basics of these topics. No, then we will come to open market operation and then we will go to switch auction. So, first of all, let's discuss everything. So let's start from here. So as we have discussed in the context that RBI has conducted open market operations, and why RBI conducted open market operations, there were two reasons for that. So this was done to inject liquidity in the system. So first thing was to inject liquidity in the system because the global oil prices are rising. Global oil prices are rising, and why they are rising? Because of the tensions in the West Asia. And the second important thing why RBI is conducting OMO is because Indian rupee is weakening. Indian rupee is weakening. These were the two important things. We will understand why RBI is doing all these things. So, first of all, let's start with very basic that what is the liquidity? We need to understand the concept of liquidity. So, what is liquidity? See, liquidity means how much money is available, how much money is available with the banking system for lending to the people. So how much money is available with the banking system for lending and transactions, that we mean by liquidity. So if we take an example, so for example, if banks have more money, right? If I have banks have more money, then it's very obvious then banks can easily give loans. And if banks have more money, then for giving loans, banks will charge low interest rates, right? And if interest rates are low, more and more people, no, more and more people will take loan, and more people will take loan, and hence the economic activities will increase. Now, on the other hand, if we consider the other side, for example, if the liquidity is very less and people want loan, so even in that situation, banks will give a loan. But since the liquidity is very low, the interest rates will be very high. And if interest rates will be very high, very less number of people will take the loans, and hence economic activity will reduce. So this was the concept of liquidity. So we discussed in the context, no, that why RBI is doing all these things, because RBI wants to inject liquidity in the market. So because of that, we first discussed that what is liquidity. Now, from here, we can easily come to the concept that what we call as open market operation. Because open market operation was conducted to inject the liquidity. So now we will understand what it is. So first of all, we will start with the definition. So see, open market operations means buying and selling of government securities. Buying and selling of government securities by the RBI to regulate liquidity in the economy. So I am not saying increasing liquidity or decreasing liquidity. I am saying regulating liquidity. That means whenever liquidity is very high, RBI will make it low. If it is very low, RBI will make it high. That's why I am using the term to regulate liquidity in the market. So it's the buying and selling of government securities to regulate liquidity in the market. Now, to regulate liquidity, OMO can be of two types. So OMO purchase and OMO sale. So when we talk about OMO purchase, so what will happen here in OMO purchase, RBI will buy government securities. RBI will buy government securities. Now, what will happen because of this? See, if RBI is buying government securities, that means banks are selling government securities. So, in return of that, RBI will give back the money, right? So, if RBI is giving banks the money, hence the banks are getting cash. That means the liquidity is increasing. So, in this case, the liquidity will increase. Now, on the other hand, if I talk about OMO sale, then what will happen here? RBI will sell the government securities to bank. That means the bank will buy the bonds, and if banks are buying bonds, obviously bank will give some money back to the RBI. And if money is going away from the bank, hence liquidity will decrease. Okay, so if we talk about the news, so in this news, RBI has done OMO purchase, not OMO sale, because in OMO purchase, we have seen that liquidity will increase. So in this news, the news we are discussing here, RBI has conducted OMO purchase to inject liquidity in the banking system. Okay, now we discussed the small concepts, right? Now let's discuss briefly that why RBI did this. What was the reason to do that? What was the reason to inject liquidity in the market? In other words, if we say why there was less liquidity in the market. So mainly there are two reasons. First reason is related to advance tax flow. Advanced tax flow. So what is this? What happened? No, in March, generally in March, companies pay advance tax to the government. So because of this, the money moves from bank to government accounts. So what will happen? No, the companies will pay advance tax to the government. As a result, the move from money will move from banks to government accounts, and as a result, liquidity will decrease. Second important reason of reducing liquidity is because of the rising oil prices. Now, why because of this? Because as we know that India imports around 85% of its crude oil demand. So if India wants to import crude oil, then India will need a lot of forex, India will need a lot of dollar and other currencies. So if amount of dollar is reducing, then it's very obvious that rupee will depreciate, and hence the value of rupee is reducing. So because of this, since the value of rupee is reducing and since liquidity is reducing, hence RBI is conducting open market operations. Now, okay, all these things we discussed. Yes. Now, one more important thing. Let's discuss about the switch auction because it was also in the news. Just a second. Okay. So, one more important concept, and that is switch auction. So we read in the news that government conducted switch auction. So basically, a switch auction is a process where the government replaces old government bonds with the new government bonds. So here old government bonds are replaced with the new government bonds. So, in simple words, if we can say that investors will give back the old government securities, and in return, they will receive new government securities with a longer maturity period. So, what is the reason for that? See, main purpose for this is to manage government debt more efficiently. How it will help government? It will help government to extend the maturity period of the debt. So now, for example, if government has to repay the debt in 2026 or 27, so government will issue the new bonds with the new maturity, for example, 2030 or 2032. So it will extend the maturity of the debt period. So at present, the burden of the debt will reduce. So this is the concept of switch auction. So let's understand with very simple example. For example, the government of India has issued a bond and its maturity year was 2027. That bond was supposed to mature in 2027. Now, the government wants to reduce the amount it has to repay in 2027. So, because of that, the government will conduct a switch auction. So, what will happen in that? The investors who are holding the bond with a maturity of 2027, now government will issue a new bond with a maturity year of 2035. So the investor exchanges the new bond with the old one. So the burden of repayment moves from 2027 to 2034. So this is the very simple concept of the switch auction. So, if we try to understand in a very simple analogy about the open market operation, because it is very favorite topic of UPSC for the UPSC prelims. So, if we want to understand about the open market operation, so we can think of Reserve Bank of India as water regulator of the economy. Water regulator. So, if there is less water in the system, so RBI releases the water. And if there is too much water in the system, so RBI absorbs the water. So in this way, we can say that open market operations are one of the pipes through which RBI controls the flow of money. So in through this analogy, we can understand about the open market operation. Okay. So yes, let's discuss briefly about the open market operation. So open market operation, as we already discussed, that they are related to buying and selling of government securities by the central bank in the open market to regulate liquidity in the economy. So regulate means it can increase also, it can decrease also. And there are two types of OMO. We already discussed OMO purchase, OMO sale. So here liquidity will increase, here liquidity will decrease. Now, about the switch auction, as we discussed, So switch auction is when government buys back short-term securities and issue long-term securities. Now, important thing here is who conducts switch auction. So, switch auction is conducted by Reserve Bank of India, and RBI does that on behalf of the government. That's why in the context we read that government conducted switch auction. So, it is conducted by RBI on the behalf of government of India. Now, who participates in the switch auction? All the type of investors will participate, like the banks, insurance company, mutual funds, primary dealers, or no, or every type of investor who hold government security can participate in the auction. Now, next important topic is the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so here important thing, here the context is the Iran war could create the fertilizer shock, and this shock is often ignored global risk to food prices and farming. So see, whenever we discuss about the crisis of West Asia, every time we discuss about the oil crisis or energy crisis. But the article says that fertilizer crisis can also happen, and it is equally important with respect to the global crisis, with respect to global economy. Because if there is fertilizer shock, there will be food inflation, there will be food crisis. So this is the main context. So first of all, let's discuss briefly about the news. So see, as we know that Iran conflict is usually discussed in context of two things, and that is oil prices, and second is the energy security. However, as we already discussed, that this global fertilizer supply chain is often ignored in this. So, why we are talking about this fertilizer and global supply chain? Because since we are talking about the Strait of Hormuz, see very clearly, this is Strait of Hormuz, and this is a very narrow region. So, the article here the article says that the since the Persian region, no, sorry, Persian Gulf. Let's understand with the map only. Just a second. Huh. So see, this is the Persian Gulf. So the article says that Persian Gulf is a major producer of nitrogen fertilizers such as urea and ammonia. So urea and ammonia. So nitrogenous fertilizers have huge availability in the Persian Gulf region. And what is the reason for that? Because in Persian Gulf region, we can easily get the cheap natural gas. And you might have already studied that to make nitrogenous fertilizers, natural gas is used as a raw material. So see, since natural gas is easily available in the Persian Gulf region and has so nitrogenous fertilizers can be easily available here. So fertilizer production is very high also and very cheap also. Now, as we know, that because of the crisis in the West Asia, and second important thing that Iran controls the northern part of the Strait of Hormuz. So anytime Iran can block this very narrow passage, and if this very narrow passage is blocked, so along with the oil supply, gas supply and fertilizer supply can also be stopped. So because of that, we can face the crisis of food supply. So this was the overall thing which the article is discussing. So article says if the conflict disrupts shipping through this narrow passage, the fertilizer exports could decline. And as we know, to support this huge population in the world, we need chemical fertilizers to increase agricultural production. So, Iran war is not just an energy crisis, but it is also a potential food security crisis. So, this was the overall gist of the article. So, in this, one important thing about the prelims is the location of the Strait of Hormuz. So, once again, we will discuss. This is the Strait of Hormuz. This is the Strait of Hormuz. This is the Persian Gulf, and Iran is located at the northern side of the Strait of Hormuz. This is Gulf of Oman, and this passage is very narrow. So let's understand some of the points. So it is one of the maritime choke points in the world, and it lies between Iran to the north and Oman and UAE to the south. So see, here Iran is to the north, and see this. Just a second. This part is also Oman, and this part is also Oman. So don't confuse with this. So the point is talking about this part of Oman, UAE, and Iran. So Iran is at the north, and Oman is UAE at the south. And at its narrowest, the strait is about 33 kilometers wide. So this narrow strip is around 33 kilometers wide, and because of that, it is very narrow passage for global shipping traffic. So because of that, it faces huge traffic and congestion issues also. And here important thing is, according to some estimates, more than 20% of the world's oil and natural gas supplies are transported through the Strait of Hormuz. And because of that, this is very important. So oil supply also, gas supply also. So if gas supply is stopped, then production of fertilizers, nitrogenous fertilizers will also be stopped. Okay, so these were the important articles for today. Now, your questions for tomorrow. So please provide the answer in the comment section. And today we shall be discussing the answers of the questions which we discussed yesterday. So here your first question is, ethylene glycol is widely used in which of the following industries? So first is antifreeze and coolants. Second is polyester manufacturing. And third is pharmaceutical antibiotics. So you have to provide me answer in the comment section. Second question is about the open market operations. So, open market operations conducted by RBI refer to which one of the following? First is purchase and sale of government securities in the open market to regulate liquidity in the banking system. Second is regulation of capital inflows and outflows through foreign exchange market interventions. Third is direct lending by the RBI to commercial banks during liquidity shortages. Third is issuance of treasury bills by Government of India to finance fiscal deficit. So please go through the video once again and try to answer both these questions and provide me answer in the comment section. Now, we will discuss the answers for the yesterday's questions. I hope you understood the question. Okay. So these were the questions. This was the first question of yesterday related to cheetahs. So the question was with reference to cheetah, consider the following statements. So it is the fastest land animal. I think we already discussed this in the article. So it is correct. Second is its claws are non-retractable. We discussed this also, right? That for example, this is paw of cheetah. So these are the claws. So cheetahs cannot take these claws back inside, unlike other predators. So this is also correct. Third is, it is capable of roaring like lions. So see, this statement is incorrect. And no, UPSC can also give these kind of statements to confuse you in the exam. So unlike other kind of predators, cheetahs cannot roar. So this statement is wrong. So see, if three is wrong, these three are gone. And yes, so answer will be A.